And the day before I was flying out to Guam, I was just running errands for that trip. And that morning I got up and I just was driving in my car and I flippantly said a remark to God. I won't say that I was in deep prayer. I said, God, if you want me to go to Hamtramck, have somebody call me today who can tell me everything about Hamtramck. And it can't be somebody from the Assembly of God, or it can't be somebody who's like pastoring who wants me to go there. It's got to be somebody who doesn't know anything about it. So I just throw that out there to him. And honestly, I had no faith that anything would happen. I was busy. I was running errands. Didn't think about it the rest of the day. And about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I get a call, and the secretary said, "Hey, Chili, it's a lady named Janet. She says she worked with you in Philadelphia. And in Philadelphia, I used to be a professor and department director at a college called Valley Forge Christian College. And I oversaw all the youth ministries of there and taught all of its courses. And while I was there was a missionary in residence named Janet. And so we worked together on staff at the college. And she was calling, actually, looking for my sister-in-law, who was my secretary and also her secretary when we were at the college. She was trying to track her down. And I said, oh, she doesn't work here anymore with me. She lives in Chicago. And we began to talk about that and just light talk. And she was about ready to hang up. And she said, hey, by the way, what's new with you, Chili? And I said, wow, it's funny that you asked. I said, I've resigned. I'm not sure where I'm going, but I really feel God calling me to plant a church. And she said, wow, well, where? And I said, well, I know it's going to be in a major city. And so I'm just really seeking God. She goes, has he really spoken about any place in particular? And I said, actually, yes, Detroit. And she said, Detroit? She said, where in Detroit? And I said, well, I'm sure you've never heard of it. It's a city within the city of Detroit called Hamtramck. She said, Hamtramck? She goes, my last name is Iwanski. She goes, I'm Polish. I was raised in Hamtramck. I can tell you everything you want to know about that place. And while she's telling me this, tears begin to run down my face. And so I hung up with Janet. I picked up the phone, and I called my wife.
He called me. I was standing outside of my kids' piano lessons, and he said, you know what? I know for sure that it's Hamtramck through a series of events that God had put into place that day. And I started jumping and clapping and praising God, going, yay!
And so June 2004, we moved here, rented a house at the time, and started building this church. And it was just in such disrepair with everything that's in this building. Every wall has been reconstructed and repainted. Every ceiling's been repainted. Every floor has been scrubbed. All kinds of junk thrown out. Just amazing transformation. And built a new stage, built a new wall, built a new coffee bar, built a new nursery area. All those things, just with volunteers, 8 of us that moved here. 8 young adults and my wife and I moved here with a vision that just said, man, we're going to do this. And every one of our core team at that time unanimously just said, let's do this. Let's do this. I'm in. I want to do it, So they all moved up here, had to find a place to live, had to find jobs. The Assemblies of God joined with us in this and said, we'll back you. And they said usually it takes 12 months to 18 months living in a community and working in the community before you're ready to open the doors. And I was like, no way, we'll open in the fall. So we moved here 1st of June, 2004, and October 10th, 2004. The doors of Real Church opened. 7 days before we opened, it was a nightmare still in here. We had so much painting to do. We still hadn't finished the floors. We were just absolutely running ragged. But after you set a date and you advertise, you got to be open. And I remember my parents flew up. My parents live in Springfield, Missouri. They flew up for this. And other people too. But I remember when they walked in on that Saturday, October 9th, and they looked at the building. And they looked at me and they were like, are you sure you can open tomorrow? I was like, oh yeah, we'll be ready.
When we first walked into this building, the ceiling was falling apart. The roof was falling apart. So because of that, it had been like raining in the building and seeping down through for years, a couple of years. And so it smelled horrendous because there's like mold and there were parts of the walls that were falling in because water had been coming down the back of the walls. Everything was just old. It was like a ghost town when you walked in this particular room that we're at right now, which we call the refuge. The floor, this beautiful wooden floor, was like looked ruined from water dripping in the ceiling. But it was like a ghost town because it was all set up like church. There was even a keyboard and drums on the stage and like a pulpit. And we were like, doo-doo-doo-doo. Like, it was really creepy because I guess apparently like there was a church here some years ago, and then literally they just like walked out one Sunday and that was it. And everything stayed like a ghost town. So we were all like, this is so weird. But it was cool because we had some stuff to start out with, that we weren't expecting. The basement was disgusting and smelly just because it had been wet for 2 years. So it took weeks of repairs and literally scrubbing with like this nasty cleaner to scrub the mold and just the gross stuff off of the walls. And churches came and helped us. But it was really awesome.
At the end of the day, on October 10th, we were just buzzing. It was just like going, we did it. And it's like, sometimes you live up to it it's like a big event. And then like it dawns on you later going, oh yeah, we have to do it every week. Before we were ever open as a church, that summer, as busy as we were, if there was something going on in our community, we were there. What happens outside of this church, we're going to be there. We're going to make a statement to this community. And we had only been open about 3 months, and we were contacted by the Chamber of Commerce, and they said, we do this thing called the Hamtramck Festival over Labor Day and the Labor Day weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And they said, last year we had somebody run the family section. They're not going to run it this year. Would your church oversee the entire city block for the family section? All day long during the day, we ran programs for kids. During that week, we gave out over 600 backpacks full of school supplies for kids. And so it was that week right before, September began, and here all these kids are getting new backpacks, good ones, full of everything they need for school. And they must have loved what we did because they raised our budget and asked us to come back again this year. And so, now we're going to become like a part of that festival. Because we're there the whole weekend, we couldn't have church here, so we had church right on the middle of Joseph Campos Street, which is the main street of Hamtramck. That's where we have church on Sunday morning on Labor Day weekend. And that's where we'll be this year. These people in this community are disillusioned and jaded by religion. They need something real. Well, then it was simple. Let's call it real church. We want it to be a relevant church, We want it to just be aware of what's going on in our world and culture. We want it to be an equipping church. One of the hallmarks of my ministry everywhere I've been is discipleship, taking young people or young Christians of any age and helping them grow into a strong Christian where they can then disciple others. That's been hallmark. So we said we've got to be equipping, which means we've got to incorporate small groups and training of children and training of teenagers. We've got to have that be a hallmark in what we do. We want it to be alive. We want it to be energy, when you come in. And so, our worship band is kind of a rock band, and our style is such. We don't care about what kind of clothes a person wears because God looks at the heart. So, wear your jeans, t-shirt, that kind of thing. We want it to be alive. We want the coffee bar to be awesome and people talking and people feeling a pulse that God has for this city. And then we want it to be loving. And really that's the grip of it all, So you go relevant, equipping, alive, loving. That's an acronym. It spells real. That's what we want to be. A relevant, equipping, alive, and loving church.
We're here with